Hey there, this is Jen T. Grace. I am the host of today's show, Purpose Beyond the Page. And I'm sitting here with a very dear friend, Shannon, who is going to grace us with her presence to talk about all things generosity. So thank you for agreeing to come on the show. I really genuinely appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure to get to connect with you and meet your audience. So thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate the space that you create for authors and thought leaders and just people who want to share their ideas. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I feel like there's already 100 questions I want to ask, but I'm going to slow myself down and just have you kind of give a little bit about who you are and your background so that we can kind of frame the context of our conversation.
Perfect. So, Shannon Cassidy, I founded Bridge Between back in 2000. So, we're on our 26th year. And I work with CEOs and leadership teams to reduce what I call friction, which is that hidden drag that slows decisions and alignment and execution. So, most organizations try to solve that by doing more, having more meetings, more communications, more tools, more solutions. But what I have found is what really makes a difference is behavior and behavior shifts. And I call that the generosity economy. That's what we're going to talk about today. So it's the disciplined practice of like giving clarity, access, feedback, direction, support, mentoring in ways that help teams and people move faster.
Okay. You've already said a lot. And so let's unpack maybe first the definition of the generosity economy. Like how do you define that and how does that show up?
Yeah. So generosity is not about being nice, and it's also not about financial giving. I think for some reason, generosity and monetary giving have been cross-contained. I think of it more as how do you show up every day as a leader, as somebody who influences the outcome, the culture, and how are we doing that intentionally? Because it's just like any other skill where we've got to be mindful about it. How am I intentionally choosing to be generous by slowing down, by offering clarity, by providing feedback, giving mentoring? So it's like the acts, it's the little acts every day that add up over time for an individual who impacts a team, who impacts an organization, that impacts the world. So the economy piece of it is that it's a system that can either be intentionally generated or not. And I want each person listening to consider themselves a member of that community and that economy, and how are we contributing to it?
I love that. So, all right. So if somebody is new to this whole concept, which I would imagine there's probably a number of people who this is maybe first kind of pieces of information about this. What would you say to someone who's like, oh, that's actually a really interesting idea. I wonder how I can show up more generous in the workplace or as an employer, or what that might like. What's that, I guess, maybe first baby step someone might take to do something?
Love it. And I'm creating something that's like a generosity strategy so that people can even put their own thoughts into like, here's what I have to give. Here's what I really care about. Here's the difference I want to make. And, it spits out some direction. So that's TBD. It's going to be a downloadable on our website. But for just right now, so think about it. You have time. So and somebody has once said, like, how do you spell love? Time. So the most important thing we have is time.
Yeah.
Then you have talent, right? You have some abilities, some experience, a skill set. Maybe you're even masterful at certain things. And then you have treasure. You have the financial giving that you could give. So those are really the three categories. And so for each of us to stop and think, okay, so how do I already make a contribution? I think that's an important clarification. We're not starting from zero. We're maybe looking at it differently. It's a new lens of how I'm contributing, that I'm choosing to invest my time, talent, and treasure in these things. Who do I want to care about more? Like, in what ways could I leverage some of the insights I have? Like, this happens to me often when I'm designing mentoring programs, and the mentors will say, well, how am I supposed to help this person? Or what am I going to offer them? And just by being there, somebody who has had experience, who's learned the hard way to how to do certain things, just listening and understanding what someone is struggling with and then considering how you might be able to help them, that's generous.
Mm-mm.
But doing that intentionally is what I'm talking about, so that you can be mindful of where am I and how am I investing in these ways, and not so that we can get something back, but like you and I have talked about a lot, is the return on generosity, which is that we're not giving to get, but the wonderful feature of being a generous leader is that you get so much satisfaction. You get the joy of knowing that you made a difference. You get the genuine, authentic connection with someone else. You get the privileged, responsible seat in the inner circle of somebody's life that they would be willing to share things with you. You get the chance to share your expertise. Like, very often we're masterful in things that we love to do. So you get to find other ways to share that. So I just think there's so much joy in that. So I would say for our listeners to just consider, what is one thing that's sparked in your mind as we're talking about this, and what can you do about it? And then I would just say a very simple thing that anyone can do right now is to think about someone that you're grateful for. A really helpful way to think about that is, in the position that you're in right now, who helped you get there? Who is the person that opened the door for you, made the connection, maybe coached you on how you interviewed, or whatever the thing is? Send that person a note today and say, I was thinking about you and I'm still deeply grateful for the role that you played. And, I promise to pay it forward. That creates that ripple effect, because you feel good, the receiver feels good, and then they want to go do more good, so it just keeps cascading out.
I love that. And, this isn't what you're saying, but it made me think of this too, is, just complimenting somebody on that you love their jacket or you love their shoes, or just something like so simple that you're passing a stranger and you genuinely like, oh, I love that. So cute. Like, actually
Yes.
just saying those words, like,
Mhm.
you can see someone's confidence immediately boost. They're
Mhm.
like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then you feel amazing because you said it to them. And it's like this energy exchange. And I feel like it's kind of like that, but like on a more intentional and bigger level.
Absolutely. Because it's not that you didn't notice their shoes and like their shoes. It's just that sometimes we don't say it.
Yeah.
So all I'm suggesting is that you say it. Like, you're grateful for these people. You really are.
Mhm.
But sometimes we don't say, and they're like, well, they know that I'm grateful for them. They probably don't. And
Yeah.
even if they do, tell them again. Right? Even if that person knows that they have killer shoes on, you saying it makes them feel, their
Yeah.
shoulders rolled back and they
Mhm.
feel even more like themselves, and that's beautiful. That's what you want them to feel.
Yeah. And it kind of goes to that return on generosity, right? If you were to just pick up your phone and just start texting people that you were genuinely grateful for,
Mhm.
that there's going to be some kind of reciprocal energy that occurs from that will, be a catalyst in some way.
Yeah.
Maybe you know what it's going to be, maybe you have no idea, and all of a sudden, like, all these opportunities that occur, and it just kind of keeps you moving forward in that, like, grounded place of
Yes.
generosity.
Totally, totally. And I think that you said grounded, which just then made me think of grounded in gratitude, right?
Mhm. Yep.
The daily gratitude journal, and
Yeah.
whatever habit you choose to create. But all of you listeners, please create some kind of gratitude habit.
Mhm.
So that could be like, every Friday I send 3 texts, or every day I jot down in a notebook something I'm grateful for, or whatever the thing is, but make it a habit, because back to that, like, reducing friction point, is we get this type of thing intellectually, and this sounds so simple, and it is, but we just don't do it. And then we feel bad that we didn't do it. So, like, that's not helpful. That's not generous to ourselves, because then we feel guilt and shame, and those are terrible
Mhm.
feelings. So
Yeah.
just set yourself up for success, and like, whatever Jen and I are talking about right now, that you think, I want to do that.
Mhm.
Like, set up a habit and commit to it.
Mhm. Yeah, I talk to authors often where it's like, what can you do that's actually attainable? Like, if we look at, like, SMART goals, like, not even going to that full extent, but, like, what's actually a habit that you can maintain? Because if I said that you have to do, if you have to write every day, and that's just not in your ability, then why? Because like you said, it's going
Yeah.
to be the guilt, it's going to be the shame. I'm like, I'm not good enough. Why do I think I can do this? And like, that's the last type of energy we want to be putting towards something like
No.
generosity.
Absolutely. Right. Because when we think of generosity, another misnomer is that we're only talking about giving to others.
Mhm.
I think the step that we jump over is giving to ourselves. And I
Mm.
think that self-care, that self-acceptance, that's
Mhm.
really the X factor, the self-acceptance, but
Mhm.
the self-compassion, the when you need oxygen, right? That's why they say that on the airplanes that you've got to put your own oxygen on first. We understand that
Mhm.
in a crisis, but day to day, we don't for some reason have healthy habits. Most of us, some of us do, but most
Yeah.
of us don't take that into consideration. Like, what do I need? How do I fill my bucket, so to speak, so that
Mhm.
I have something to give to others? Which is why that grounded in gratitude is such an important way to think about this. Because if think of yourself like a tree, and if your roots are the grounded in gratitude, because you are truly grateful,
Mhm.
from that place we get abundance because we realize, oh my gosh, like there's so much that I have to be grateful for. And from that abundance, then we pour out onto others. Right. So I think
Yeah.
that's the proper order
Mhm.
for it
Mhm.
to go in. So if you're like parched or, you know, you gotta, f-
Yeah.
feed your bucket first.
Yeah, and when you're working with people who are in, leadership positions or, whomever you might be serving, are you working on that piece with them too to try to figure out, like, how to kind of, quench that thirst that might
Mhm.
exist before they're trying to pour into others?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
What
and
does
for
that
a
look
lot of
like?
people, that's a really new habit.
I
So
bet.
there's a little bit of a sales pitch that has to go along with it of like, why does this matter?
Yeah.
And how can this help you sustain longer? Because
Mhm.
really, if you think about the just the logic of it, if I am disciplined about my own self-care, then I have greater resource. Like even using the tree or any living thing as an example, like if we just don't water something for
Mhm.
a while, it's going to die.
Yeah.
So for us to be really disciplined about that, it just keeps us healthier. And then we're not resentful that people want something from us. Because as
Mm.
generous leaders, people are accustomed to you offering to help. And
Yeah.
that often feels like a great thing, right? That you're a reliable source of support and encouragement or
Mhm.
help. But if you're in a drought
Mm.
and you have not sufficiently, given yourself hydration, you're resenting that people like they want more from me, really? You know? So like
Yeah.
the very thing that would have brought you joy had you had that bucket filled now brings you stress and irritation and a lack of appreciation where you're like, oh my gosh, like how much is enough?
That is such a good visual. How do like, I'm just trying to think of, like, if somebody's like, "Oh my god, she's talking about me right now." Like, how do they navigate that or kind of get through that? Like, what's that first, like, maybe little baby step to kind of
Yes.
start to fill the bucket?
So there's two phrases, one is just one word, but two things I want us to take in. One is the word yet. And that's a growth mindset word where it's like, I didn't think about this yet. Like, I haven't mastered this yet. I understand what you're talking about. I don't have the habits to enable me to have that kind of, longevity or sustainability yet. And
Mm,
by just adding that word creates the hope and promise that you're going to figure it out. Like you will be more committed to the ritual that works for you. Like for some people it's going for a walk or running or hydration or getting more sleep or getting off your phone or more time with your friends or more time alone or reading books or whatever. Like we all know what that thing is for us. It's like
mhm,
your power cord. And
mm.
like my power cord charges my device, like say my phone. It might not be the same power cord that your device needs. So that's totally fine. So that's it. The yet. And another phrase that I like to use is until today, because it's like until today, I just didn't think about why that's so valuable.
Mm.
That's all good. That just means you're growing. So congrats. Like that's
Yeah.
great. And the reason why I love the yet and until today is it takes all the shame and the guilt and the, oh, I should have done this. And oh, I screwed this up. And no, that's not generous. That's not helpful. If you learn from your mistakes, great, but leave it there. Right? Like Nelson Mandela said it best. I either win or I learn. Those are your two choices.
Yeah. Those are such good phrases.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times you hear in, I don't want to say self-help circles because I don't want to like diminish what I mean,
Yeah.
but people say, and I just said but. My point was going to be not using the word but and changing that to the word and, right? Like something so simple. And what you're saying
Gold.
adds, like, that's extra gold, right? Like it's like gold on
Yes.
top of gold when you throw the yet in there, because
Mhm.
it does well, I don't need to know that yet. It's not like, why would I have known that? And like you said, until
Yeah.
today, I would have had no reason to understand what that means.
Right.
And now I'm
And
here.
you were busy being productive in other ways. So like, it's not to say like what you were doing was wasteful. It
Yeah.
just perhaps you hadn't considered the value of self-care
Mhm.
until today. And now you're like, you know what? That makes a ton of sense.
Mhm.
And it's not selfish. Selfish is another word
Yeah.
that has gotten, manipulated or, made us to feel like it's so negative and bad. It's just like, if you're being selfish by filling up the bucket so that you can give to others, like that sounds generous to me.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had said that we often know what that chord is, right? Like we have an instinct.
Mhm.
Do you come across people who really are just so maybe depleted that they don't even know what the thing is that might fill them back up?
I have not met people who don't know that. I meet a lot of people who don't activate that.
Mm.
So they know. Like I wrote a book called Vibe, and it stands for values. What are your core values? Interests. What are the things that you find fun, which is the topic we're talking about. B are beliefs, the beliefs you have about yourself. So you create I am statements. And then E is energy sources, which is how
Mhm.
do you manage your energy? So what we're talking about is really the whole vibe.
Mhm.
And people know what brings them joy and energy.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, I don't have time to do that. And
Yeah.
then you just say, you haven't made time yet. You
Mhm.
haven't figured out where this fits into your weekly routine yet.
Mhm.
Because very often people think of recovery time like Saturdays. And
Mhm.
it's like, if we're gonna wait till Saturday,
Yeah.
we're gonna be like army crawling across the finish line, right? So we're like
Mhm.
beat up. So
Yeah.
instead, why don't we choose to create
Mhm.
rituals throughout the day, every day that are
Mhm.
restorative and intentional? And it's
Mhm.
strategic to be this way. This is not like, oh, this is so sweet. This is actually the best way to create the most amount of energy because
Mhm.
unlike time, energy is something that we can create more of by
Yeah.
being intentional about it.
Oh, I love so much of this. Where does Okay, so let's just say that we've sorted out what's going to fill our cup.
Mm.
We are grounding ourselves in gratitude. We have all these kind of like, things in place that we are aspiring to do. Where does discipline come into the mix in terms of like making this actually stick?
Yes. Well, thank you for saying that because the E in vibe, since we've already talked about that acronym, energy management, one of the greatest things that I learned about energy management is that 5% of our behavior is willpower or grit or
Mhm.
that conscious
Mhm.
behavior that we choose. So we just don't have a lot of that. That discipline, I would put in that 5%. So to be kind to ourselves, the most logical thing in my mind is to start small. Like think
Mhm.
of the one thing. I call it the 5-degree shift for that very reason because 95% of our behavior is autopilot or habit,
Yeah.
right? And so how do we back to being generous to ourselves, how can we take this goal, like writing a book, right? You work with authors all the time. They want to write a book. That's a big goal. How do they back it in? And I know that you do this in your coaching because you help them to think about what's that next milestone and the next one and the next one. Because if we're just going to go take off for a run for a marathon, and
Mhm.
we're not going to see the end, the finish line for 26.2 miles.
Yeah.
That's exhausting. And we're going to run out of steam somewhere around maybe mile 5 or 6. But
Mhm.
if we look at that as a series of sprints, like that marathon, we're going to break it up into mile
Mhm.
markers. And at each mile, I want you to like reward yourself. Maybe that's where you get your little water or your
Mhm.
Gatorade. And you talk about what went well and then what's next. And you just, those add up. And next thing you know, you're running across the finish line.
Mhm.
So that the discipline, in my opinion, is what is the small shift that
Yeah.
you're going to make? Be straight up about that until it gets lobbed into the 95, and
Mhm.
then pick another one.
Oh, that's so smart. That's so smart because it's not saying like I have to become a different person tomorrow because
No.
Lord knows that doesn't work and we all know that. Like there's a lot we know that. So we can pick one thing,
Yeah.
kind of master it. It's now a habit, it's part of our routine, and then do something else and all these
Mhm.
small things. So all these 5 degrees begin to add up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
That's why most New Year's resolutions vanish by like January, 5th,
yeah.
6th,
Yeah.
because we're just going too wide. I'd
Yeah.
say narrow it down, be specific. What's the one thing that most of us have a chronic thing that we're like, I really wish I would, whatever, fill in the blank.
Mhm.
Okay, pick that one.
Mhm. And
What's,
it's interesting when
yeah,
you're doing like, creating a new habit because, like, you know that you're trying to create the new habit, and then all of a sudden it just becomes the habit. And then
yeah,
you're like, "When the hell did that happen? Like, how did I like" all of a sudden, like, my mind just, like, shifted. I'm like, "Oh, now it's just what I do."
that's just what I do. And it's like, you can't not do it.
Yeah.
You can't resist waking up and you drink a glass of water because
Mm,
that's what you just decided you were going to do every single day. And now you can't not do that. Right.
yeah.
So start small, really
Yeah.
simple, like grateful. Every night before I go to bed, I write in my gratitude journal. That is
Mhm.
like without a doubt. So if I'm away, I don't have my journal. I just write it down on a piece of paper and then I
Mhm.
add it later just
Mhm.
because it's the way I put you know, a
Yeah.
button on the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel like there's so much here because I think sometimes, like, discipline like, there's like, in my mind, it's almost like a polarity where you have, like you're trying to, like, do this thing that you know is good for you on one side, but it requires, like, this discipline and effort and
Mhm.
intentionality on the other side, and our brains are kind of, like, conflicting with, like, how do we process that
Mhm.
shift of, like, moving through that kind of it's all like it just reminds me of, like, choppy waters, right? Where you have, like, the smooth on both sides, but you gotta kinda
Mhm.
get through that chop in order to, like, get to the other side.
Yes. Oh, completely. And I'll just go through vibe with that lens on it just
Yeah.
real quick. So for our listeners to think like, what do I value? Because when you're grounded in your values, like gratitude, but when you're really clear about what you stand for, what you believe in, what you want to perpetuate in the world, where your boundaries are, those are all like ways to talk about your values. Like that is motivating. So when you look at the whatever it is that you're trying to do that you want to be disciplined about, how can you like look at it through the lens of what you value with
Mm,
your interests? Look at it as an outlet to have fun and to
mhm,
express yourself and that whole energy piece. And then the beliefs, to create a belief that helps you to see yourself as the thing that you want to be doing. So if like for those writing books, I am an author. Just
mhm,
declare it. You maybe never wrote anything in your life yet. That's okay. That's a
mhm,
yet. But
mhm,
I am an author, like clarifying or claiming that rather as an identity is a catalyst, as you know. Um, and I am an influencer, or I am um, strategic, or I am disciplined. Maybe that's the word you're going to
mhm,
use.
mhm,
And then the energy sources is the how am I looking at my body of work or this thing that I want to complete as a series of sprints?
mhm,
And what are those sprints? And then how am I rewarding myself and recharging
mhm.
in between?
Yeah, I love that. And something that you just said made me think of visibility. I think, oh, because you said I'm an influencer.
Yeah.
So, there's things, there's phrases like that that strike fear in the hearts of many, especially as aspiring thought leaders or thought leaders who are like, on the rise.
Mhm.
How does visibility kind of play into all of this work, whether it's kind of like internal visibility with like a team or
Mm.
external visibility on a stage? Like, how might some of this vibe and the other stuff show up?
Mm. Yeah, well, that visibility is a key component to the generosity economy because you could be the greatest fill in the blank, but if no one knows about you, that's a hidden treasure gone wrong, right? That's like buried treasure that you hope somebody's going to find someday, but they might not. So, how can you take responsibility for getting the kind of visibility and exposure that you need? And then when you have a platform, how are you leveraging that to help others to get that same kind of visibility? So, it's very much a ripple effect.
Mhm.
So just depending on where you are in that scenario, if you're the person who needs visibility, I think it's on us to clarify what contribution do I want to make? What part of my skill set do I want visibility for? How do I see that solving a problem or making a contribution to this organization or this issue? And who would be the kind of person who would enable me to get that type of
Mm,
visibility. So just
mhm.
thinking about your own stakeholders and your own network and then investing generously in your network.
Yeah.
I see you do this beautifully, Jen. And so people can just take a lead from you about how do you look at the people that you already know and give them opportunity like you're doing for me right now,
Mhm.
right? Like you're giving me visibility to share what I believe in with your audience. And so that is a way in which we can be generous leaders.
Mhm. I love that. And so when we think about leaders, I think sometimes there's a very maybe narrow definition of what people are thinking of when they think of leaders or leadership. And I work with thought leaders, so the word is there, or people producing thought leadership. So
Yeah.
both of those words are there. How does this apply to somebody who maybe they're working in a small family owned business or um just a like their visibility goals may not be these big
Mhm.
goals that maybe
Mhm.
someone else might possess.
Sure.
What's the application for someone who like they just need to focus on, the influence over like two people in this small company?
Right. Well, I mean, leadership and influence are the same thing, in my
Mhm.
opinion. So, a thought leader is somebody who wants to influence how you think, right?
Mhm.
A business leader is somebody who's influencing how their business runs. So, you want to think about how am I influencing people? And, you know, again, back to the intentionality. We're all influencing people, but how are we doing that with intention? Like, what kind of an impact do I want to make? So, if it's that office of three and I'm influencing those two other people, how do I want them to feel?
Mhm.
Do I want them to feel appreciated? Do I want them to feel motivated? Do I want them to feel like they can come up with new solutions to legacy problems that we have had? Do I
Mhm.
want to create psychological safety?
Mhm.
Like, you probably answer yes to all those things. Okay, so what would I need to do? How can I lead in a way that enables those outcomes? And then how can I check in with the individuals who I lead to check and see how well I'm doing? Because I do think that the impact is really in the heart of the beholder or the
Mhm.
person to whom we are leading, because we could be as well intended as we want, but if we're causing others to feel something other than what we aspire to do, then that's where those small shifts need to happen.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, I love that so much.
Mm,
So you have the vibe, and then now there's the generosity economy.
yeah.
What ways, what does it look like when you're showing up in that kind of generosity economy?
Yeah, I think I want to view myself like a rock in a lake.
Mm.
Like, I really wanna be the rock that gets the ripple going.
Mm.
And it doesn't have to be it's not a boulder. It's just enough
Mhm.
to create something that moves people to do more intentionally.
Mm.
Because again, I can't think of anyone who isn't already generous. So
Mm.
it's not like we're starting from zero. We're
Mhm.
not. I just want us to be more intentional about who and how we're making a difference and how are we leveraging the strengths and abilities and gifts that we've been given, because all of us have been given a handful of them.
Mhm.
How are we leveraging that? And just be curious. I think that being curious about how can I be more um engaged and activated, and like what would that look like, and get excited about the possibility of like what that ripple effect could be.
Yeah.
And then, want to be the rock. So I think the role I'm playing is the catalyst,
Mhm.
or maybe even the reminder. And I really want to make sure that it's tangible, simple, actionable, because if it feels too big,
Yeah.
nothing's going to change.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So one of your tips before was to, text somebody and just kind of express your gratitude for them for wherever they were kind of part of your journey.
Yep.
Any other kind of small tips in terms of like that 5 degree, like for the 5 degree shifts?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. So I'll just go with the really simple ones. So one tool that we could all use is LinkedIn.
Mm.
Most of us are on LinkedIn. Just congratulate somebody's promotion or send a note of encouragement, or you could spend 4 minutes out there every day and just do a little something. Just
Mhm.
a little kindness, generosity, encouragement, support. That's an easy one. Sending a thank you note. Handwritten thank you note is
Mhm.
preferred. I think it's a lost art. So for those
Totally
who
agree.
are picking up what I'm putting down, I would say just
Mhm.
get a little box of thank you notes and send a couple. That's a good thing to do. Giving people feedback, like honest, thoughtful feedback, is such a great way to do it. And it doesn't have to be this long performance review, horribly like stressful. No, it's just like in the moment when you said that, that really changed the direction of the conversation. That was wonderful. When you presented that, you used a lot of filler words like the buts, or you use a lot of
Mhm.
filler words. It discredited how much you had to contribute. Practice not saying that going forward.
Yeah.
I'm happy
Yeah.
to, do some rehearsals with you.
Mhm.
Right? Those are some of the things that we could do like any given day. And
Yeah.
then, saying hello to people.
Mhm. Mhm.
Being kind, and, civility, unfortunately, isn't always that obvious. So just, opening a door for someone,
Mhm.
telling them that you like their shoes, just
Yeah.
engaging with people. And
Yeah.
again, I don't think that it's because we don't care. I think we're just so in our head that we
Mhm.
don't even see half of these situations that we could be more generous if we chose to be.
Yeah, yeah, I think we live so much in our heads, and the reality is that no one is paying as close attention to what we're doing as we are, right? Like we have all these like things that we think, oh, this person's watching what I did, or they saw this, and it's like they're too wrapped up in themselves to have any clue that you just did something that you shouldn't have done, or you feel like you shouldn't have done.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That give grace, right? Put things in perspective. And if you're
Mhm,
not sure, check in with the person. I haven't heard from you in a while. Is there
mhm,
anything going on? Or here is a sounding board if you need one. Those
mhm,
are generous offers, and people
mhm.
can take them or not.
Yeah. And I feel like this is good from just a general like networking standpoint, business building standpoint, getting your thought leadership out there. Like there's so many like when you're just showing up from that place of just being generous,
Mhm.
like things boomerang back around to you without you having to like push the boulder up the hill. They just kind of
Absolutely.
automatically return.
Yes. And
Mhm.
for your fans to know, another resource is you were a guest on ROG, Return on Generosity podcast. Your episode 92. I just re-listened to it this week. It's really good. And one of the things that you talked about there was you said when new opportunities come your way, you have a three-legged stool that you
Mhm.
kind of like the decision matrix, so to speak, of like, is this good for me? Like, is this a good outlet for my talent? Is this good for them? Like, am I the right resource for them? And is this good for the greater good, right? Is this good for the world.
Mhm.
And that's a really helpful check, the checklist. Like,
Mhm.
it's like when Rumi said to, before you say anything, have it go through three gates. Like, is it true? Is it
Mhm.
necessary? Is it kind?
Yeah.
Right. So like having
Mhm.
those checklists, so to
Mhm.
speak, really help for us to say grounded in like, okay, yes, if I can say yes to all of these things, let's
Mhm.
move forward.
Yeah, and I think that's part of like goal setting to some degree too, because if you have some kind of like checklist that you're going through that helps weed out and clarify if what you're doing is going to get you to whatever that next goal is, that also kind of helps from that standpoint too. Like for me, it's just
Hmm.
I think it's easy to be like, is this good for me, you in the audience? Like that would be a great example of this right now. Like, yeah, I think so. I think we're accomplishing that goal. And if you're thinking about something specific of like, oh, I want to raise my business to this next level. I want to win this award. I want to whatever the metric is. You
Hmm.
just throw that lens into the mix to say, is this activity right now going to be something that's measured in that outcome that I'm looking for? And if it's yes, then do it. If it's no,
Yeah.
then you're like, okay, maybe this can wait.
Hmm. That's great. Because another thing that I hear people struggle with is boundaries,
Mhm,
especially as a generous leader.
mhm,
So that's a good boundary.
mhm.
Like, if it doesn't hit this criteria, wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
And it
doesn't
doesn't
mean
have
it's
to be
not gonna ever be a good idea. It's just not something you're gonna invest in right now.
That's exactly what I was just gonna say. Yep, same
Okay.
page. Yep, same
Yeah.
page. Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so good. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like anytime we talk, I'm like, I got so many new nuggets to take away with me. And
Oh,
the yet I
likewise.
think is like my big nugget. The
Mm,
yet, I'm like, oh,
yet.
that's so good because it just
Ah,
like reduces, especially for authors, right?
mhm,
Because the authoring process is so laborious, sometimes painful, and I don't think it has to be, but I
mhm,
think people are bringing in all of this baggage that they've heard or they're talking to like, "Oh, Shannon was going on and on about how hard it was to do this." And then like people are listening to that and then they're like, "Oh, that means it has to be hard for me." And it's like it doesn't though. So if you
mhm.
could throw the yet into the mix, I think that alone, like I
Yeah.
haven't figured this out yet. That's
Mhm.
fine. Like you would have had no reason to figure it out until this moment anyway. So it just like
Exactly.
really gives us so much permission to just
Mhm,
explore and do what feels aligned versus feeling like we have to follow a script or a plan or a box checking
mhm.
situation.
And you know how your brain works. When you identify what is the problem that I need to solve, you're gonna find it. Your
Mhm,
brain is just going to naturally look for solutions.
mhm,
So when you say something like "yet," you're creating that opening of like like how could that be my
mhm.
reality? And let your brain go solve for that. And that's
Yeah.
where coaches like you are really helpful because they might be like, I don't know, help me.
Yeah.
And then you could say, okay, here's a couple of best practices, or why don't
Mhm,
you try this? Or,
mhm,
between now and our next conversation, work on
mhm,
that. So I think those are some of the ways that people can keep themselves in check and
mhm,
still, stay sane and get their goal
mhm.
accomplished.
Yeah, I think it's all about giving permission, like permission to
Hmm.
proceed, to pursue, to all the things.
Hmm. Absolutely. And just on this topic of generosity, because you are such a great role model for this, can you tell us like some of the ways that you see yourself in the generosity economy?
Oh, that's a good question. I think for me, it's like on the mentorship side of things. I
Mm,
find myself in so many conversations with younger people that are just looking they're just like sponges who are like looking for how to kind of get to where they want to go without going through the pain and hell to kind of get there. And one thing is that PYP is a certified B Corp. And
yes.
that basically means that we're, here for the people and planet before profits. But you can have all three, and you can have all three. Like it
Mhm,
all like there's a beautiful ecosystem, and the generosity economy so beautifully fits into kind of the ethos of what B Corps are all about.
mhm,
And I get students reaching out to me all the time who are like, "Hey, I found you in wherever, and I want to talk about your business. I want to know how you're embedding those B Corp practices in your business and making it sustainable and having it make sense
mm,
because it's so hard, I think, for a business that doesn't have that kind of just in their DNA to just want to do good and do
mhm.
well. And so I know that I'm just referenced in so many different like papers with college students. And it's just always such a fascinating conversation. It's like young, curious people. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'd love to go back in time for a moment just to, I don't want to go back to that time, but just for a moment to like see it through their eyes, you
Yes.
know?
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, right. Yeah, and it makes you think about the people who helped you
Totally.
then, right?
Mhm.
Who took your calls and meetings and fielded your questions and met you with that, like, sense of wonder
Yeah.
and curiosity and, like, inspiration, like, then you're paying that forward, and
Mhm.
I just love that they're referencing you in their in their research,
Mhm.
like,
Fun.
and it gives you hope, right? Because when you
I
think
think that,
about, like,
yes.
I think so many messages that come our way right now or in 2026 are very negative and not inspirational. So to see these young people like really digging into like what does it mean to be a B Corp and how can
Mhm.
I practice some of the ways that you're running your business, it gives you hope for the future.
It really does because I think the younger generations have such a bad reputation, and I don't think that's fair. Like,
Agreed.
I don't know why we're so unfairly, just deeming an entire generation of people as, lazy, or like I
Mhm.
hear that word a lot, and it's like, that is not true. Their expectations are way different, and they're not gonna tolerate a company's bullshit, and I think that is way better. I'd rather have someone who's, like, really committed for 2 or 3 years than someone who's half-assing it for 2 decades, right?
Amen. Yes. And your company, Publish Your Purpose, is right in line with what they care about purpose,
Mhm, mhm.
meaning, making a contribution, being intentional, right? Having your eye on the right target so that you can do what's good for the earth and for others and be profitable, right?
Mhm.
And take care of people. Those, all of that can happen together. So I think your position on how you run your business really applies well to that type of a thinker.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's fun because it does give me hope where I'm like, "Okay, there are a lot of really awesome young people who wanna do really cool things." And I love that they're just not tolerating, like, not accepting. Like, I think that's amazing, and I wish more people, like, of all ages would just be like, "No, we're not
Right.
tolerating this tyranny, this patriarchy,
Right.
all the things." Like, throw it like, no, there's no reason. But there's no reason, especially for, like, you and I, where we own our own businesses, right? Like, this is not a new rodeo. Like, we've been both at this for quite some time, and so we don't have to tolerate anything that doesn't feel aligned with our values. But there's
Mhm.
a lot of people who still are dealing with like
Right.
the mess where they don't have that autonomy. And so I think
Mhm.
all of what we've talked about today kind of helps the people who might not have that freedom or flexibility to break
Yes.
free from whatever their situation is, but at least they're able to show up in a way that feels more aligned for them and their cup is filled. Therefore, they
Mhm.
can fill others.
Absolutely.
So good. I could talk to you all day.
Spot
I really
on.
appreciate you.
Likewise. Thank you for this invitation. I loved connecting with you again and getting to meet your audience. And I just ask everyone to think of like, what's that one thing that you're committed to, that small 5-degree shift that you're going to make to be more intentionally generous?
I love that. I'm gonna think about that for myself, so I appreciate that invitation. And where can people best find you?
So bridgebetween.com, which could feel long. So shannoncassidy.com takes you there too. But my website is the host of all of the things, and that's where the generosity strategy is going to be.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that myself. And then also you have a podcast that has been around for quite, how many episodes are there on
It's
that?
252. I sunset it in January, or
Yeah.
yeah, December was our last one. So it's 252 episodes, 5 years running.
Mhm.
You're
Yeah.
part of that legacy. We did a lot of research on the outputs from ROG, and I'll just share a couple of highlights for you. I'm going to make this a downloadable because it was so fascinating that it
Mhm.
made the case for why generous leadership is the X factor.
Mhm.
And 90% of the episodes focused on culture and team dynamics. 88% of them focused on time and attention. 81% of the episodes focused on mentorship and sponsorship. I could go on and on. Belonging and inclusion, connection and relationships, innovation and change, right? So
Yeah.
it's the thing that gets everything going, which is why it's a healthy economy.
Yeah, and even though you sunsetted it, 6 months ago, those are, because I've listened to many episodes, as you said, I was a guest on it, like, they're recorded in a very timeless way. So it's not like anything is very like, oh, you had to be in 2022 for that to make sense.
Yeah.
That is not how that is at all. So I still
No.
highly encourage people to go check that out. So it's
Thank you.
Return on Generosity.
Yes. R period, O period, G period. Otherwise you get Rogan.
Oh, yeah. And depending on who you are, you may or may not want that.
You might want that, but that's not going to get you there.
That's not going to be generosity.
No. It's in a different way.
Yep. Amazing. Thank you so much, Shannon. I really appreciate you. I had fun today.
My pleasure. I appreciate you too, Jen.